Robert Turner stood in the doorway of what was supposed to be his bar, staring at emptiness and silence where music and laughter should have been. He'd been gone for only 3 days, a quick visa run to Laos that Lolita had insisted he take alone because she needed to handle some important business paperwork. Now, at 66 years old, with the midday heat pressing down like a physical weight and sweat already soaking through his polo shirt, Bobby realized that the thriving business he'd left behind had been stripped to the bones. The bar stools were gone, the sound system, the televisions, the pool table, the neon signs he'd been so proud of all, vanished. The liquor bottles that had lined the shelves behind the bar had disappeared, leaving only dust outlines where they'd stood. Even the air conditioning units had been removed from the walls, leaving gaping holes and dangling wires. The safe in the back office, where they'd kept the daily cash takings, sat open and empty, the door hanging at an odd angle, as if it had been pried or forced. Bobby's hands trembled as he pulled out his phone and tried calling Lolita for the 17th time that morning. The number rang once, then went to a message in Thai he couldn't understand. He tried Line. Blocked. He tried Facebook. Her account had vanished. Standing alone in that gutted bar, in a building that legally belonged to someone else, in a country where he had no protection, Robert Turner understood with soul-crushing clarity that the 29-year-old woman who'd called him husband and promised him forever had executed a plan so precise, so legally protected, that he had no recourse whatsoever. 437,000 pounds, nearly everything he'd earned in 42 years of hard work, was gone, and so was she. Robert Turner had always been proud of being a self-made man. He'd grown up in Bristol, England, in a working-class family where money was always tight. His father had been a factory worker, his mother a shop clerk, and Bobby had learned early that if you wanted anything in life, you had to work for it. At 16, he'd left school to apprentice as an electrician, spending his days learning the trade while his friends were still studying for exams they'd probably fail anyway. The work was hard, crawling through attics in summer heat, working in unheated houses during winter, dealing with difficult customers and demanding bosses. But Bobby was good at it. By 25, he'd earned his master electrician license. By 30, he'd started his own company, Turner Electrical Services, operating out of a small van with just himself and one apprentice. The business grew slowly but steadily. Bobby had a reputation for honest work, fair prices, and showing up when he said he would, 3 qualities that seemed increasingly rare. By his mid-40s, Turner Electrical had 8 employees and a steady stream of commercial and residential contracts. Bobby wasn't wealthy, but he was comfortable. He owned his own home, drove a decent car, and took yearly holidays to Spain. He'd married at 28 to a woman named Patricia, a secretary at a local office. The marriage was fine for the first decade, not passionate or exciting, but stable and predictable. They had no children, which Patricia had wanted, but Bobby had resisted, saying he was too busy building the business. Looking back, Bobby wondered if that had been the beginning of the end. By their 20th anniversary, Patricia had become distant and cold. She complained constantly about Bobby working too much, about him being emotionally unavailable, about him caring more about the business than their marriage. Bobby thought she was being dramatic. He was providing for them, wasn't he? They had a nice house, annual holidays, financial security. What more did she want? Patricia filed for divorce when Bobby was 58. She got the house, half the business value, and a portion of his pension. The settlement cost Bobby approximately 180,000 pounds, and he'd felt bitter about it for years. All those years of work, of providing, and she'd taken half of everything, and walked away to move in with a dental technician she'd met at a conference. After the divorce, Bobby threw himself back into work. He had no social life to speak of, a few mates at the pub once a week, but no real friends. His employees were polite but distant. His family consisted of a sister he barely spoke to and a few cousins he saw at funerals. Bobby was, fundamentally, alone. At 64, Bobby decided to sell the business. He was tired. His knees hurt from decades of climbing ladders and crawling through tight spaces. His back ached constantly. And for what? So he could die alone in a cold flat in Bristol with no one to care? A competitor offered him 320,000 pounds for the business, including the client list, equipment, and company name. Combined with his pension, payout, and savings, Bobby had approximately 560,000 pounds, roughly $650,000 US. It was more money than he'd ever had at one time. Bobby started researching retirement abroad. Spain was too expensive. Portugal was crowded with British expats he didn't want to socialize with. Then someone at the pub mentioned Thailand, Pattaya, specifically. Cheap living, warm weather, year-round, beautiful beaches, and the Thai women were apparently friendly and appreciative of older Western men. Bobby watched YouTube videos, read expat forums, and joined Facebook groups. The more he learned, the more appealing it sounded. He could buy a nice condo near the beach for 70 to 90,000 pounds. Living expenses would be a fraction of what he spent in Bristol. And yes, the stories about Thai women were enticing younger women who didn't constantly complain, who appreciated what a man provided, who made you feel like you mattered. In November, Bobby booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok with a connection to Pattaya. He was 65 years old, newly retired, and ready for adventure. When his plane touched down at Suvarnabhumi Airport on a humid evening in late November, Bobby felt genuine excitement for the first time in years. The terminal was massive and modern, signs in Thai script everywhere, the air thick and warm even inside. He took a taxi to Pattaya, watching Bangkok's urban sprawl transform into the neon chaos of the beach city. Bobby had rented a furnished studio apartment near Jomtien Beach for the first month while he figured out where he wanted to settle permanently. The place cost 12,000 baht a month, about 300 pounds, and was perfectly adequate. Clean, air-conditioned, close to everything. His first week in Pattaya was a revelation. The weather was perfect, warm and sunny, no gray skies or cold rain. Food was incredibly cheap. A full meal at a local restaurant cost less than 4 pounds. Beer was less than 2 pounds a pint. Bobby could live comfortably on 1,500 pounds a month, maybe less. But more than the economics, Bobby noticed the attention. Women smiled at him. Bartenders called him handsome man. Shop owners greeted him warmly. In Bristol, Bobby had been invisible, just another aging tradesman that nobody noticed. Here, people seemed genuinely happy to see him. Bobby started frequenting the bars along Walking Street, Pattaya's famous entertainment district. The first few visits were overwhelming: dozens of bars, loud music, women in revealing clothes calling out to passing tourists. But Bobby quickly found his comfort zone in the smaller beer bars, where the atmosphere was more relaxed and conversational. That's where he met Lolita. Bobby met Lolita Kittikun on his 4th week in Pattaya. It was a Friday evening, and Bobby had wandered into a karaoke bar called Moonlight on Walking Street. The place was small, maybe 10 bar stools, a few tables, a small karaoke stage where a drunk Australian was butchering Hotel California. Bobby took a seat at the bar and ordered a Leo beer. A young Thai woman approached with a bright smile. She was petite and pretty, with shoulder-length black hair and a friendly demeanor that seemed more genuine than some of the other bar girls Bobby had encountered. "Hello, welcome Moonlight. I'm Bam," she said enthusiastically. "Bam?" Bobby asked, amused by the nickname. "Yes, my real name Lolita, but too difficult for foreigner. Everyone call me Bam. What your name?" "Bobby, from England." Her eyes lit up. "England, very nice. You holiday?" "No, I live here now. Retired." "Wow, you lucky man. Live in paradise." Bobby found himself warming to her immediately. Unlike some of the more aggressive bar girls, Bam didn't push him to buy her a drink or try to drag him off somewhere. She just chatted with him between serving other customers, asking about his life in England, what he thought of Thailand, why he'd chosen Pattaya. Bobby found himself talking more than he had in months. He told her about his electrical business, about selling it, about wanting a new life in warm weather. Bam listened attentively, asking follow-up questions, seeming genuinely interested. "You must work very hard," she said. "Build business from nothing. That very impressive." Bobby felt a flush of pride. When was the last time someone had called his life's work impressive? It wasn't easy, but yeah, I'm proud of what I built. "You good man, I can tell. Hard worker, honest person." Something about the way she said it, looking directly at him with those sincere eyes, made Bobby's chest tighten with emotion. Before Bobby left that night, Bam asked for his phone number. "You come back see me? Yes? I like talk you." Bobby gave it without hesitation. Over the next 2 weeks, Bobby returned to Moonlight almost every evening. Bam always greeted him warmly, as if he were the only customer who mattered. She would sit with him for hours when the bar wasn't busy, and they'd talk about everything. She told him about her life growing up poor in Udon Thani province, moving to Pattaya at 23 to find work, ending up in the bars because the money was better than factory work or cleaning hotels. "I not like this life," she said one evening, her voice heavy with what seemed like genuine sadness. "But I need send money to my mother. She old, she sick, she need help. I only child. I have responsibility." Bobby felt a surge of sympathy. Here was this young woman, doing work she clearly didn't want to do, sacrificing her own dignity to support her family. It reminded him of his own work ethic, doing what needed to be done, even when it was hard. "How much does your mother need?" Bobby asked. Bam looked embarrassed. No. I not tell you to ask money. I just tell you my life." "I know, but I'm asking, how much?" "Maybe 15,000 baht 1 month for medicine and food. But I not ask you, not right." Bobby did the quick math. 15,000 baht was about 360 pounds. "Nothing, really. Let me help." "No, I cannot." But Bobby insisted, and eventually Bam accepted, though she made it clear she felt uncomfortable about it. "You so kind, Bobby. But please, you not need do this." "I want to," Bobby said. "You're working hard for your family. That deserves respect." That night, Bam hugged him tightly before he left, her face pressed against his chest. "You different from other customer, Bobby. You have good heart." Walking back to his apartment, Bobby felt something he hadn't felt since the early days with Patricia, like he mattered to someone. Call to action. If Bobby's story is already concerning you, please subscribe to our channel for more true crime and love scam documentaries from Southeast Asia. These stories expose the real tactics predators use to destroy lives and drain savings. By subscribing and sharing, you help protect others from making the same devastating mistakes. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications now. By Bobby's second month in Pattaya, he and Bam were in a relationship. It started with Bam finishing her shifts early to have dinner with Bobby at local Thai restaurants. Then she started coming to his apartment, first for a few hours, then overnight. She brought a small bag of clothes and toiletries, and gradually her presence became a permanent fixture in Bobby's life. Bobby had never been happier. Bam cooked for him delicious Thai dishes that were far better than the restaurant food he'd been eating. She cleaned his apartment without being asked, did his laundry, and greeted him with genuine affection. She made him feel young, vital, important. One evening in early January, about 6 weeks after they'd met, Bam brought up the subject of her bar work. "Bobby, I need tell you something," she said, her expression serious. "What is it?" "I want quit working at bar. I not want that life anymore. But if I quit, I need pay bar fine, maybe 50,000 baht. And I need money for support my mother still. I not know what to do." Bobby felt a protective surge. The idea of Bam continuing to work in that environment, dealing with drunk tourists, and God knows what else, bothered him deeply. "How much is the bar fine?" 50,000 baht, maybe 1,200 pound. "I'll pay it. You should quit." Bam's eyes filled with tears. "Really? You do that for me?" "Of course. I don't want you working there anymore." She threw her arms around him, sobbing against his shoulder. "Thank you, Bobby. Thank you so much. You saved me." Bobby paid the bar fine the next day, and Bam officially quit Moonlight. She moved into Bobby's apartment full-time, and for a while, Bobby felt like he'd rescued her from a difficult life. He was her hero, her savior, the good man who'd given her a chance at something better. But Bam was restless. "I want do something," she told Bobby one evening. "I not want just sit home. I want work, earn money, be partner with you." "You don't need to work," Bobby said. "I've got enough for both of us. But I not want be burden. I want contribute our future." Bobby found her attitude admirable. She wasn't content to be kept, she wanted to be productive. It was exactly the kind of work ethic Bobby respected. In February, 3 months after Bobby had arrived in Thailand, he made a major purchase, a 2-bedroom condo in a modern building near Jomtien Beach. The place was beautiful, 9th floor, sea views, fully furnished, with a swimming pool and gym in the building. The cost was 2,800,000 baht, approximately 67,000 pounds. Bobby put the condo in Bam's name. She'd explained that foreigners could own condos in Thailand, but only up to 49% of a building's units. Bobby's desired condo was in a building that had already reached its foreign ownership quota. The solution was to register it in a Thai name, Bam's with a private agreement that Bobby was the actual owner. "But we together," Bam said. "What mine is yours. We like married, yes?" Bobby agreed. They were building a life together. What did it matter whose name was on the paperwork? Living in the new condo felt like success. Bobby would sit on the balcony with his morning coffee, looking out at the ocean, and feel proud of what he'd accomplished. He'd left cold, gray Bristol and built a new life in paradise with a beautiful woman who loved him. But then Bam suggested they open a bar together. Small bar, not like Moonlight, she explained. Clean place, friendly, for expats and tourists. We run together. I work bar, you manage money. We make good business, we both have purpose. Bobby was hesitant at first. He didn't know anything about running a bar, but Bam was enthusiastic and persuasive. She knew the business, knew what customers wanted, knew how to manage staff. And Bobby had to admit, the idea of having a project again, something to fill his days, appealed to him. How much would it cost? He asked. Bam did some research, consulting with friends who owned bars. Maybe 3 million baht for everything. Lease, renovation, furniture, license, stock. Bobby felt his stomach clench. 3 million baht was about 72,000 pounds. But Bam assured him it was an investment that would generate steady income, maybe even profit within a year. Over the next 3 months, Bobby poured money into making the bar a reality. They found a location on Swai Bukau, excellent foot traffic, surrounded by other successful bars. The lease required a year up front plus deposit 1,200,000 baht. Renovations, new flooring, bar counter, bathrooms, paint, lighting another 900,000 baht. Furniture, a pool table, sound system, televisions, 600,000 baht. Licensing and permits 300,000 baht. By the time Bobby's bar opened in May, Bobby had invested approximately 3,700,000 baht, 89,000 pounds. The bar was beautiful, modern but comfortable, with good music, cold beer, and a welcoming atmosphere. Bam hired 2 of her friends to work as servers, and Bobby acted as the owner, chatting with customers and buying rounds. The first few weeks were promising. Customers came steadily, particularly other British expats who appreciated Bobby's friendly manner. Bobby felt proud every time someone complimented the place. But there was a problem Bobby tried to ignore. Everything was in Bam's name. The lease, the licenses, the business registration, the bank account, all legally hers because, as she explained, foreigners couldn't own bars without complex and expensive corporate structures. But at our bar, Bam assured him, we partners. I never do something without you, my husband. Bobby believed her. Why wouldn't he? They were living together. They'd built this together. She called him her husband. They'd even started talking about making it official, a small wedding ceremony in her home province. Maybe adopting a child once the business was established. Everything felt real, solid, permanent. Bobby had no idea he was living in an elaborately constructed illusion. By August, 4 months after Bobby's bar opened, cracks began appearing in the foundation of Bobby's dream. The bar was busy most nights, bringing in decent revenue. Bobby calculated they were making approximately 250,000 to 300,000 baht per month in gross sales. After expenses, rent, staff salaries, utilities, restocking liquor, they should have been clearing at least 80 to 100,000 baht in profit. But the bank account never seemed to reflect those numbers. Every time Bobby asked to see the business finances, Bam had explanations for why the money was lower than expected. Unexpected expenses for licenses, repairs to equipment, higher than anticipated rent increases, promotional costs to attract more customers. Business take time, grow, Bam would say whenever Bobby expressed concern. We need reinvest now, profit come later. Bobby wanted to believe her. She was the one managing the day-to-day operations while he played host to customers. Maybe she understood things he didn't. But Bobby also noticed Bam spending money more freely. She bought new clothes, designer pieces that seemed far beyond what their budget should allow. She got her nails done weekly at expensive salons. She bought jewelry, gold necklaces, and bracelets that Bobby didn't remember purchasing for her. When Bobby asked about it, Bam said she was buying things on credit or that her friends gave her gifts. Bobby didn't press further. He didn't want to seem controlling or jealous. Then, in September, Bam mentioned that her mother needed surgery. Very serious, she said, her eyes filling with tears. Doctors say her heart have problem, need operation soon or she maybe die. Bobby felt immediate fear and sympathy. How much does the surgery cost? Maybe 250,000 baht. Very expensive. I not know how pay. Bobby did the calculation. 250,000 baht was about 6,000 pounds. A significant amount, but not devastating. And this was Bam's mother, the woman who'd raised her, who depended on her. Family was important. "I'll cover it," Bobby said. "Your mother needs to be okay." Bam sobbed with gratitude, throwing her arms around him. "You saved my family, Bobby. I never forget this. Never." Bobby transferred the money to Bam's personal account the next day. She showed him photos a week later, her mother in a hospital bed, looking frail but smiling. Bobby felt validated. This was real. He was helping real people. But the requests continued. In October, Bam's younger brother needed money for university fees, 35,000 baht. In November, her mother's house needed urgent roof repairs after heavy rains, 50,000 baht. In December, there was a family emergency involving her uncle's medical bills, 60,000 baht. Each time, Bobby transferred the money without much question. This was what family did, they helped each other. And he was part of Bam's family now. By January, 1 year after Bobby had arrived in Thailand, he'd spent approximately 175,000 pounds, 67,000 on the condo, 89,000 on the bar and its initial setup, and another 19,000 on Bam's various family emergencies and personal expenses. Bobby still had about 385,000 pounds in his accounts, which seemed like plenty, but he was spending far more than the bar was generating, and his savings were diminishing faster than he'd anticipated. One evening in late January, Bobby suggested they need to be more careful with money. "We're spending too much," he said gently. "The bar needs to start showing profit, or we'll have problems." Bam's expression shifted just for a moment. Bobby saw something hard flash across her face before the warm smile returned. "You worry too much, Bobby. Business good. Everything okay." "I'm not saying it's not good. I'm just saying we need to watch our spending." "You not trust me?" Bam's voice took on a wounded tone. "You think I steal from you?" "No, of course not. I just want us to be smart. I work hard every day. I manage staff. I order stock. I keep everything clean. And you say I'm not careful with money?" The argument escalated from there, with Bam eventually storming out and not coming home that night. Bobby felt terrible. He hadn't meant to upset her. He was just trying to be responsible. The next morning, Bam returned, apologized, and said she understood his concern. "I try be more careful," she promised. "We partners. We do this together." Bobby felt relieved. Crisis averted. But the pattern continued. More requests, more expenses, more money flowing out while very little seemed to be retained. By March, Bobby had less than 300,000 pounds left in his accounts. He'd spent nearly half his life savings in 16 months. That's when Bam suggested Bobby take a visa run. In late March, Bobby's tourist visa was nearing expiration. He'd been running on consecutive tourist visas since arriving, and Bam pointed out that he'd need to leave the country briefly and return to get a new stamp. "You go Vientiane," Bam suggested. "Easy trip, 2-3 days. I handle bar while you gone." Bobby had been putting off the visa run, but Bam was right, he couldn't let it expire. "Come with me," he suggested. "I cannot leave bar," Bam said. "We have big group booking this weekend. Russian tourists. Very important. I need make sure everything perfect." Something felt off to Bobby, but he couldn't articulate why. He was being paranoid, he told himself. Bam was managing the business. Of course she needed to stay. "All right," Bobby said. "I'll go alone. Be back in 3 days." Bam kissed him deeply. "I miss you already, husband." Bobby packed a small overnight bag and took a bus to Vientiane, Laos, on a Wednesday morning. The journey was long and uncomfortable, but Bobby spent most of it dozing or reading on his phone. He crossed the border, got his new visa stamp at the Thai embassy, and spent 2 nights in a cheap guest house in Vientiane. The city was interesting, less developed than Bangkok, more laid back, with French colonial architecture and good food. Bobby tried calling Bam each evening. She answered the first night, saying everything was fine, the Russian group was happy, the bar was busy, but the second night, she didn't answer. Bobby texted her, "Everything okay?" No response. By the third day, Bobby felt anxious for reasons he couldn't explain. He tried calling again. The phone rang once and went to voicemail. He tried line. The messages showed as sent but not delivered. Bobby cut his trip short and took an earlier bus back to Pattaya, arriving Thursday afternoon instead of Friday morning as planned. He went directly to the bar. What he found made his stomach drop into free fall. The bar was locked. Not just closed for the afternoon, locked with a heavy padlock Bobby didn't recognize, and a sign in Thai hanging from the gate. Bobby stood on the street, staring in confusion. Why would the bar be locked in the middle of the day? Where was Bam? Where was the staff? He pulled out his phone and called Bam. Straight to voicemail. He tried line. Message not delivered. He tried Facebook. Her profile showed as unavailable. Panic rising, Bobby asked a passing street vendor to translate the sign on the gate. It say, "Closed for business. Sold to new owner," the vendor said in broken English. Bobby felt like he'd been punched. Sold? What do you mean sold? The vendor shrugged and walked away. Bobby fumbled with his keys, trying to unlock the gate, but his key didn't work. The lock had been changed. He peered through the bars and saw emptiness. The bar stools were gone, the sound system, the televisions, the pool table, everything. The place had been stripped bare. Bobby drove to the condo in a state of shock. Maybe Bam was there. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. But when he arrived at the building, the security guard stopped him at the lobby. "You cannot go up," the guard said. "What? I live here? Unit 903? Not your unit. Owner change. New lady move in yesterday. She say you not allowed." Bobby felt his legs weaken. "New owner? I'm the owner. I paid for that condo." The guard shook his head. "Condo in Miss Lolita name. She sell to new owner. All legal. You need leave now or I call police." Bobby stood there, unable to process what he was hearing. The condo he'd paid £67,000 for had been sold by Bam, without his knowledge, without his consent, because legally, it was never his. It was always hers. Bobby drove back to his original studio apartment, the small place he'd kept as a backup, and sat on the bed in stunned silence. He tried to make sense of what was happening. The bar was gone. The condo was gone. Bam was gone. Everything he'd built over the past 16 months had disappeared in the 3 days he'd been out of the country. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was planned. Carefully, methodically, ruthlessly planned. Bobby went to the police station the next morning, his hands still trembling. He explained everything to an English-speaking officer named Captain Witcheye. The bar, the condo, the money he'd invested, Bam's disappearance. Witcheye listened patiently, took notes, and finally delivered the devastating verdict. "Mr. Turner, I understand you upset, but legally, very difficult situation. The condo was registered in her name. Thai law, she can sell property in her name. The bar business registered in her name. She can close business, sell equipment, do what she want. Unless you have written contract that say you owner, we cannot help. But I paid for everything. I have bank transfers. Transfer to her personal account or business account? Both, depending on what it was for," which I sighed. "Legally, those transfers are gifts or loans. Without contract, very hard prove you owner of anything. What about the fact that she disappeared, that she sold everything while I was out of the country? Not illegal. Owner can sell property. Owner can close business. The timing is suspicious, yes, but not criminal. So you're telling me there's nothing you can do? I make report, but I tell you honestly, probably you not get money back. Best advice is hire lawyer, try civil court. But civil case take years, cost much money, and even if you win judgment, if she has no assets, you get nothing." Bobby left the police station feeling hopeless and headed directly to a law firm recommended by another expat. The lawyer, a Thai attorney named Kun Sombat, who specialized in foreign client cases, reviewed Bobby's documentation and confirmed what the police had said. Everything was legally in her name, Mr. Turner. The condo, the business, the bank accounts. Under Thai law, she committed no crime. She simply exercised her legal rights as the owner. "Can I sue her?" Bobby asked desperately. "You can try. We can file civil suit for fraud or breach of verbal agreement, but proving fraud is extremely difficult without written evidence of her intent to deceive. And if she's left the country or has no assets, winning judgment does you no good." How much would a civil case cost? Initial fees approximately 200,000 baht. If case goes to trial, maybe another 300 to 500,000 baht over 1 to 3 years. And again, even if you win, collection is nearly impossible if she has no seizable assets. Bobby felt crushed. "So she just gets away with it?" Sombat spread his hands. "I wish I could give you better news. This is unfortunately very common. The scam was perfectly legal because you voluntarily put everything in her name. "I'm very sorry." Bobby hired a private investigator, a former police officer named Kun Somchai, who specialized in tracking down scammers. What Somchai discovered over 2 weeks shattered whatever hope Bobby had left. Lalita Bam Kitakun wasn't who she claimed. She had a documented history of targeting foreign retirees, particularly British men. Somchai found evidence of at least 5 previous victims over the past 6 years, men who'd met Bam in bars, fallen for her redemption story, invested in businesses or property in her name, and been left with nothing. The pattern was always the same: meet in a bar, play the struggling girl who wants to change her life, move in together, convince the man to register assets in her name for legal reasons, slowly drain his accounts through family emergencies and business expenses, then vanish once the money was gone. Total theft across all victims, over £1,200,000. Somchai also revealed the truth about Bam's supposed family emergencies. Her mother wasn't sick, in fact, her mother had died 3 years ago. The hospital photos Bam had shown Bobby were stock images found online or pictures of someone else's relative. The brother who needed university money didn't exist. The family house that needed roof repairs was actually owned by Bam's real boyfriend, a Thai man in his 30s, who owned several properties purchased with money from her scams. Even the bar's revenues had been manipulated. The business was doing better than Bam reported, but she'd been skimming cash daily and reporting lower earnings. When Bobby thought they were barely breaking even, the bar was actually generating healthy profits, all going into Bam's personal accounts. "She professional," Somchai said grimly. "She study targets, customize approach for each man, make everything look legal so no criminal case. Very smart, very careful, very successful." "Where is she now?" Bobby asked, his voice hollow. "Ko Phangan. Living in house with boyfriend. She buy the house last month, paid cash, 1,800,000 baht. Your money." Somchai showed Bobby recent photos taken in Ko Phangan Bam at a beach club, wearing expensive designer clothes, laughing with her boyfriend. She looked carefree, unburdened, completely untouched by the destruction she'd left behind. Bobby stared at the photos for a long time, then closed his eyes. "I want to see the other victims," he said quietly. "The men she did this to before me." Somchai arranged a meeting. 4 of Bam's previous victims agreed to talk: Trevor from Australia, Colin from England, Hans from Germany, and James from Scotland. They met at a coffee shop in Pattaya, 5 men who'd all been destroyed by the same woman. Their stories were nearly identical to Bobby's. Different details, different time periods, but the same fundamental scam executed with surgical precision. Trevor had lost 208,000 Australian dollars. Colin had lost 162,000 pounds. Hans had lost 195,000 euros. James had lost 178,000 pounds. "I reported her to police 3 years ago," Colin said bitterly. "They said the same thing: everything was legal, no crime committed. She's untouchable because she makes victims do it to themselves." "Has anyone tried suing her?" Bobby asked. "I did," Hans said. "Spent 2 years and 30,000 euros on lawyers. Won the judgment. Know what I collected? Nothing. She has no assets in her name. Everything's in her boyfriend's name or hidden in family members' accounts. The judgment isn't worth the paper it's written on." They sat in silence for a long moment. 5 broken men bound by the same predator. "The worst part," Trevor finally said, "is that I thought she loved me. Really loved me. Every word, every touch, every promise, I believed all of it. And it was all just acting. Perfect, calculated acting." Bobby nodded, unable to speak around the lump in his throat. That was the cruelest part. Not just losing the money, but losing the belief that someone had cared. Robert Turner filed for bankruptcy in the UK 6 months after Bam disappeared. He'd spent approximately £437,000 of his £560,000 nest egg, 78% of everything he'd saved over 42 years of hard work. The remaining $123,000 wasn't enough to maintain his previous lifestyle or recover what he'd lost. The bankruptcy proceedings were humiliating. Bobby had to detail every expenditure, every transfer, every decision that had led to his financial ruin. The trustee handling his case looked at the documentation with barely concealed judgment, as if to say, "How could you be so stupid?" Bobby couldn't answer that question. Even now, at 67 years old, living in a borrowed room in a friend's apartment in Pattaya, He struggles to explain how he'd been so thoroughly deceived. The friend, a British expat named Graham, had offered Bobby a small room rent-free after hearing his story. "You're not the first, mate," Graham had said. "Won't be the last either. These girls are professionals. They make you feel like the most important man in the world, then take everything and disappear." Bobby now lives on his monthly pension from the UK, approximately £900 per month. After the bankruptcy settlement, it's all he has left. It's enough to survive in Thailand, but barely. He eats cheap Thai food from street stalls, rarely drinks anymore, and spends most of his time in his small room or walking along the beach. He doesn't date, he doesn't trust. He can't imagine ever trusting again, but Bobby has found a purpose in his destruction, warning others. 3 months after Bam vanished, Bobby started volunteering at the Pattaya Expat Support Group, an informal organization that meets weekly to help foreigners dealing with scams, legal problems, or financial disasters. The group is run by a retired Australian social worker named Margaret, and Bobby attends every meeting. He shares his story openly now, without shame or embarrassment. He's told it dozens of times to dozens of men who are either in the middle of similar situations or teetering on the edge. "I thought I was smart," Bobby tells them. "I'd run a successful business for decades. I wasn't some naive kid, but she knew exactly what she was doing. She studied me, figured out what I needed emotionally, and gave it to me. Not for free. I paid for every moment of affection, every smile, every promise. I just didn't realize I was paying until it was too late." Some men listen, some get angry and defensive, insisting their situations are different, their Thai girlfriends are genuine. Bobby understands. He would have reacted the same way 18 months ago. "I'm not saying all Thai women are scammers," Bobby always clarifies. "I'm saying some are professionals who target vulnerable foreign men. And if you can't tell the difference, you need to protect yourself. Get everything in writing. Never put property in someone else's name. Never give someone complete control of your finances. And if something feels wrong, trust that instinct." Last month, a 59-year-old British man named Peter attended the support group. He'd been in Thailand for 3 months and was planning to buy a condo and open a restaurant with his Thai girlfriend, everything in her name because of legal restrictions. "She's different," Peter insisted. "She's educated. She has a real job. She's not a bar girl." Bobby listened patiently, then said, "Bam wasn't a bar girl either by the time she scammed me. She'd quit. She was running our business. She was my partner. She called me her husband. And none of it was real. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying protect yourself. Because if I'd protected myself, I wouldn't be bankrupt and living in a borrowed room right now." Peter looked uncomfortable but thanked Bobby for the warning. A week later, Peter messaged Bobby privately. "I did some checking. Found out she's been married twice before to foreign men. Both ended in mysterious circumstances, and she ended up with their property. I broke it off. You probably saved me from losing everything. Thank you." Bobby read that message 3 times, feeling something close to redemption. If his catastrophic loss could prevent even one other man from experiencing the same devastation, maybe there was some small meaning in it. He's saved 4 men so far. 4 men who listened, who investigated, who walked away before it was too late. It doesn't erase Bobby's loss. It doesn't give him back his life savings or his retirement dream. It doesn't heal the emotional wound of realizing that someone he loved never existed, that he'd been in love with a performance, not a person. But it's something. Bobby turned 68 next month. He'll spend the day at the support group meeting, probably sharing his story again with whatever new arrivals need to hear it. Then he'll walk back to Graham's apartment, heat up some cheap pad Thai from a street stall, and sit in his small room thinking about the life he should have had. The beachfront condo with ocean views, the successful bar where expats gathered, the Thai wife who called him husband and made him feel young again, the peaceful retirement filled with sunshine and companionship. All of it was fantasy. Expensive, devastating fantasy. "She sold me a dream," Bobby told a journalist who interviewed him last week for an article about expat scams. "But what I really bought was my own downfall. I handed her everything, my money, my trust, my future, and she took it all because I made it easy. I put everything in her name. I gave her complete control. I believed every word, and she used my loneliness and my ego against me so effectively that I never saw it coming until it was too late." The journalist asked Bobby what he'd say to other men considering retirement in Thailand with a younger Thai partner. Bobby thought for a long moment before answering. I'd say Thailand is beautiful. The people are mostly wonderful. The lifestyle can be incredible, but you have to protect yourself. Not because everyone's a scammer, but because some people are, and they're really, really good at it. Get legal advice. Use written contracts. Never put assets in someone else's name. Keep control of your own money. And understand that if someone seems too good to be true, if they're younger, beautiful, attentive, and interested in an overweight, aging foreigner with nothing to offer but money, you need to ask yourself why. Really ask yourself why. Because the answer might save your life savings. Robert Turner now spends his days warning others, surviving on his pension, and carrying the weight of an expensive lesson he'll never forget. He's bankrupt, broken, and living on borrowed charity in a country that gave him nothing but pain. But he's still here, still surviving, still warning others. Because if he can save even one more man from making the same mistakes, maybe his downfall wasn't entirely meaningless. Maybe there's some small redemption in that. If Bobby's story impacted you, please subscribe and share this video widely. Romance scams destroy lives every single day, and they're becoming more sophisticated and harder to detect. These predators don't target stupidity. They target loneliness, hope, and the very human desire to be loved. By sharing these stories, we create awareness that protects vulnerable people from financial and emotional devastation. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and help us spread this message. Your share could save someone's retirement. Thank you for watching. And remember, real love never requires you to sign away everything you own. Stay vigilant, protect yourself, and never let hope override common sense. Stay safe out there.